James has brought us to the Hutt River, Te Awa Kairangi, and you can see we're in this big open space. James, does that have something to do with trying to manage the impacts of flooding?
Yeah, that certainly does. So here we are, and we're next to a section of the river which is just over here, and then on the other side here we have what we call a stop bank, which provides our ultimate protection from flooding from the river. And yes, you are 100% correct, the space between the river and the stop bank is critical to managing the flood hazard. So my organisation manages flooding in 4 ways. The first way is to manage the river through structural means, and when we call structures, we call the stop bank that we have over there, we call that a structure. Another way is by planning, so that's what we can call the space between the stop bank and the river. We've been able to plan to not have any buildings here and to use it as open space. Another way was what we talked about, emergency management, working with REMO and flood warning, and preparing our communities for flooding. And the fourth way is in the river itself, is to make the flow of water in the river efficient such that the water doesn't leave the channel very often, and It's only in the larger floods when it does that.
Okay, so when you talk about river management and those methods, it sounds quite challenging to be able to manage a whole river.
Yeah, and obviously rivers are natural dynamic systems, and it becomes very complicated when we have buildings and people living very close to the river and we run out of options, so it can become very expensive for the community to be able to protect it. And you are right, in other areas where there's a lower population of people, or we call it less population density, there are more options. We can allow the river to flood farmland, and that's not so much of an issue. It is an issue if there are houses there, but not so much if it's a farmland. Yeah, so we have abilities to be able to manage the river and the flooding in different ways in different parts of the region and different parts of the country.
Yeah, so it's great to know that the council is managing the risk of floods, but floods are inevitable, so really important that we think about their impacts. But thanks for sharing that. Thanks,
You're welcome.
James. Kia ora.